Rather than just having a protein shake with water, try throwing in some ice in there. By throwing in some ice, it's going to make it thicker, it's going to make it colder, it's going to add more volume, and by doing all that, it's going to fill you up a lot quicker. If you have more volume in the shake, it's going to put more volume in your belly. If you have more volume in your belly, you're not going to be as hungry because it's going to fill you up. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in and welcome back to another Sunday Q&A. Today's question is another question with regard to protein powder. Specifically, if you are trying to lose weight and are starting to hit a plateau, should you incorporate protein powder to aid in further fat loss? Before I get started though, I would just like to make a little bit of announcement. And that is going to be that moving forward next week, I will be switching over to the style of videos that I make. I will be doing more of these vlog and Q&A style videos because those seem to be the videos that get more interaction and more videos that you guys want to see. So up until now, I've been dedicating a specific topic to every day of the week. Monday is Muscle Building Monday, Tuesday is Technique Tuesday. That's all going to go out the window starting next week. Starting next week, I will be doing more general topics and more of these style videos where I'm just talking to the camera, giving you guys some information, more educational as opposed to technique or exercise related. I will be continuing to do these Q&As every single Sunday, and I will also be answering whatever questions you have. So if you do have any questions, ask them down in the comment section and I'll make a video about it. So if you're new to the channel or not subscribed to the channel yet, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell if you do want to follow along with the new format that I will be implementing coming along next week. Now back to the question. A few weeks ago, I made a video on protein powders and whether or not you can include them while you are doing the carnivore diet. And in that video, I got a question from Adam Bellington asking, do you think adding protein powder will aid in weight loss? I've been on carnivore diet for 4 months now, lost about 50 to 60 pounds, but it's really slowing down now, have about 20 pounds to go. Well, first Adam, congratulations on the 50 to 60 pounds that you already lost. That's a huge accomplishment, especially to be able to do that in 4 months. So congratulations, keep up the good work. Now with regard to that question, I'm gonna break this video down into several topics. First, I will be discussing calories in versus calories out. Then I will be discussing BMR, or your basal metabolic rate, TDEE, or your total daily energy expenditure, adding in protein powder, substituting protein powder, changing your protein sources, and incorporating fat refeed days. If you want to skip ahead to a particular topic, I will be including some timestamps in the description, so you could go ahead and look in the description if you want to skip ahead to one of those topics. Now, with regard to calories in versus calories out, for 99% of the population, that is going to be what determines whether or not you gain or lose weight. 99% of the population, if you are in a caloric deficit, then you will lose weight. Unless you have some type of rare medical condition that just makes it a lot more difficult for you to lose weight, if you are in a caloric deficit, then you will lose weight. If you're not losing weight, that means you're not in a caloric deficit. When it comes to calories in versus calories out, basically 3,500 calories is going to be equivalent to roughly 1 pound of fat. So if you are in a caloric deficit of 3,500 calories over the course of a week, you should see 1 pound of fat loss over the course of that week. To get to that point, what you would need to do is create a caloric deficit of 500 calories per day. 500 times 7 is 3,500. So if you create a caloric deficit of 3,500 calories over the course of a week, which would be 500 calories in a day, then you should see 1 pound of fat loss per week. Now, you don't need to do a 500 calorie deficit. You could do 250 and see half a pound per week. It's really going to be dependent on what your goal is. If you're trying to lose a lot of weight, if you're severely obese, morbidly obese, or overweight, then you can get away with incorporating a higher caloric deficit. If you're already close to your goal and you just have a few pounds to go, then you're not going to need to create that much of a caloric deficit. Better to do it slowly over a longer period of time and be able to sustain it rather than create a huge caloric deficit, then you get to your body weight and then you go out on a binge and just put the weight back on. So if you are very, very overweight and let's say you're 500-600 pounds, then you can do more than a 500 calorie deficit per week and it won't really affect you. It shouldn't be that difficult because if you are that heavy, you can lose a lot of weight on something like a 3,000 calorie diet per day. If you're very light and you create a huge caloric deficit, your body is going to start to shut down on you. You're going to have no energy. You're not going to want to work out. So you're better to do it slowly and controlled over a long period of time if you're already close to your goal. If you're far away from your goal, let's say, again, you are at 600 pounds and you want to come down to 300 pounds, then you can do a higher caloric deficit when you start. And then once you get closer to your goal, you can gradually taper the deficit to the point where the deficit becomes smaller and smaller on a daily basis. One of the tricky things when it comes to tracking calories and determining what exactly your caloric needs are is going to be determining your BMR and your TDEE. Your BMR is going to be your basal metabolic rate, or how many calories you burn throughout the day. Basically, if you were comatose or if you were to lay down in bed all day, not do a single thing, how many calories would you burn? Whatever number that is going to be your BMR or your basal metabolic rate. Knowing that is going to be the first step in determining how many calories you need to consume throughout the day in order to become in a caloric deficit. The next thing is going to be determining your TDEE, or your total daily energy expenditure. Your TDEE is going to be made up of 3 different things. It's going to be your BMR plus the amount of calories you burn through exercise plus the amount of calories you burn through NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Things like brushing your teeth, walking, going on the computer, sitting up, standing, those types of things. Anything that's not exercise related is going to burn calories. Your body is constantly burning calories throughout the day. So once you determine your BMR and your total daily energy expenditure, adding those numbers together is going to give you your total daily energy expenditure. When it comes to figuring that out, if you're not sure exactly how to do it, you could either go to a TDEE calculator online. It'll give you a very rough estimate. Personally, I'm not a big fan of TDEE calculators because a lot of times they're going to overestimate how many calories you actually need to consume. And the other thing is people often overestimate their activity level. A lot of times people think that if they work out 3 times a week, then that will put them in the active category. If you work out 3 times a week, but your job is very sedentary, you are a sedentary individual. Just because you work out 3 times a week, it does not mean that you are in the active class. So a lot of times, people that go to the gym will input the active number, and that will give them the wrong multiplier when determining their total calories. You should be clicking on sedentary if you are a sedentary individual who works out. If you work out, plus you have a job that requires you to move around a lot, something like construction or just any type of job, you're working in a factory, warehouse, something like that, that would be considered active. If you work out 3 times a week, but you're sitting at a desk all day, that is not considered active when it comes to determining your TDEE on these calculators. That is going to be sedentary. So that's one huge thing. Now, a better option than going on a TDEE calculator would be going on this one website. It is healthstatus.com/calculate/CBC. I will include a link to that website in the description, so if you want to check that out, look in the description, click on the link, you'll be able to determine or get a much better accurate reading of what your total daily energy expenditure is. What that website will do is it'll give you a list of about 200-300 different things that you would do throughout the day, from brushing your teeth, how long are you standing throughout the day, how long are you driving, how long are you reading, how much time do you spend on the computer. It'll calculate all of those numbers. It'll tell you exactly how many calories you're burning throughout the day, and then it'll also give you a breakdown of where most of your calories are being burned from. So let's say you are standing 8 hours a day, not even doing exercise, just standing 8 hours a day. And that's where most of your calories are being burned from. It'll tell you right there, you're burning most of your calories from standing. You are burning 800 calories a day just from standing, doing nothing else. So it'll give you a good idea of where your calories are being burned from, and it'll also allow you to get a better idea of what your TDEE is. Now, it's not 100% accurate, but it's going to be much more accurate than a lot of these basic TDEE calculators where you just input your activity level, your age, your weight, and then it'll just multiply it by, let's say, 1.2 if you are active, 1.4 if you're very active. That's not going to be very accurate, so you're better off going to that website that I just listed. Again, it's going to be down in the description section, so check out the description if you want to check that out. Now that we got all that out of the way with regard to calories in versus calories out, let's get on to the actual meat of the question, which is going to be incorporating protein powders if you are trying to lose weight. If you are trying to lose weight, adding in protein powders may help if you are in a caloric deficit. If you are consuming the exact same amount of food that you are consuming right now, and you add in protein powder on top of that, that protein powder is going to add in more calories to what you're consuming. So if you're already either at a standstill or you're gaining weight and you add in protein powder on top of what you're already consuming, that's going to either put you into more of a caloric surplus, or if you were in a maintenance level or just losing a little bit, it might bump you up to a maintenance level and you will not see any weight loss. So again, adding in protein powder, it's not just enough to add in protein powder, you still need to keep track of how many calories you are consuming. If your main goal is health and not weight loss, then I wouldn't really be focused on counting calories. I would worry more about intuitive eating, so just seeing how you feel, what foods make you feel really good. If you have good energy levels, good mental clarity, then don't bother counting calories if you're not concerned with weight loss. If you are concerned with weight loss, especially in the beginning, you should keep track of how many calories you are consuming, because it'll give you a better idea of how much food you should be consuming in order to get to your goal. But again, that is if your goal is weight loss. And this video is specifically with regard to weight loss, so that is why I'm discussing calories and protein powders in this video. Now, with regard to adding in protein powders, the type of protein powder that you add in is also going to play an effect. If you are consuming something like a whey isolate, then that's very fast digesting. And one of the things with whey isolate is because it is fast digesting, it would be better to consume that after, let's say, a workout. Whereas if you're consuming a slower digesting protein like a casein protein, that would be better before bed. However, when it comes to protein, you're going to get through it pretty quickly. If you are incorporating protein powder into your diet, if you're just drinking a regular shake, that's going to be done just like that. So rather than just consuming protein powder on its own, adding water and shaking it up and drinking it in 2 seconds, another option that you can do to make it last a little bit longer, make it more satiating, fill you up a little bit more, is rather than just having a protein shake with water, try throwing in some ice in there. By throwing in some ice, it's going to make it thicker, it's going to make it colder, it's going to add more volume, and by doing all that, it's going to fill you up a lot quicker. If you have more volume in the shake, it's going to put more volume in your belly. If you have more volume in your belly, you're not going to be as hungry because it's going to fill you up. So that's a little pro tip that you can incorporate if you are going to be adding in protein powders for weight loss. Throw in some ice, put it in a blender, add some water, and then drink it that way, because if it's colder, you won't be able to drink it as quick. If it's thicker, you won't be able to drink it as quick. And if there's that much more ice, it's going to create more volume, so you won't be able to drink it as quickly either. So the combination of those three things will make it last longer. It'll make you fuller on it. And it is just a little trick that you can do to make it last a little bit longer and fill you up a little bit more. Aside from adding in protein, another option would be substituting protein powder. This question, I had exchanged a couple more messages, and he had said that he was thinking about substituting a meal with protein powder. Now, that is another option. If you want to create more of a caloric deficit, if you're consuming a meal that, let's say, has 500 calories and you substitute it with a protein powder that only has 120, that is going to give you 380 calories less throughout the course of a day. That 380 calories is almost going to be equal to 1 pound of fat loss throughout the week. It'll be roughly 3/4 of a pound. So substituting an actual meal with protein powder is another option that you can do. Again, it's going to come down to personal preference. If you're the type of person that likes to eat food, you don't like to drink shakes, then I would just either change the protein source or minimize the amount that you're eating throughout the day. If you're the type of person where you enjoy the shakes and you don't really care about the food that you eat, then yeah, you can swap out a meal for some protein powder. Each one is going to give you the same effect as long as you are in a caloric deficit. If you're in a caloric deficit, you will see weight go down when you hop on the scale. Now, when it comes to changing the protein sources, in this video, the person mentioned, Daniel, he said that he was consuming things like brain and more fattier cuts of meat. So if you are consuming fattier cuts of meat, the more fat that you consume is going to have higher calories. The higher calories, it's going to make it easier to become in a caloric surplus. If you are in a caloric surplus, you will gain weight. So one of the things that you can do is decrease the amount of fatty meats that you can consume and change it to more leaner cuts of meat, things like top sirloin steak or extra lean ground beef. Me personally, if I go low fat, I feel terrible on low fat. So I like to incorporate more fattier meats into my diet. If you're the type of person that you can eat leaner cuts of meat and you feel good, then swap out the fattier meats for leaner meats, and it will drop your calories down. By dropping your calories down, it'll make it easier to get into a caloric deficit. If you're in a caloric deficit, then you should see the weight go down when you hop on the scale. If you hop on the scale and your weight is either the same or it has gone up, then you are not in a caloric deficit. You need to adjust the calories that you consume throughout the day. And another thing that you can do if you are going to swap out the fatty meats for the leaner cuts of meat is every few days what you can do is incorporate a fat refeed day. What that means is, let's say for 4 days you eat very lean cuts of meat. On the 5th day, you incorporate some fattier cuts of meat. This will be particularly beneficial if you are the type of person that doesn't do so well on leaner cuts of meat and you need a little bit more fat on your diet. For me, I've tried doing low fat in the past and it just did not work out for me. So for me, if I was going to do a high protein, low fat carnivore style diet, I would definitely incorporate a fat refeed every 4 to 5 days. You're going to have to experiment on your own, see what works for you. You can try doing just fatty meats and limiting the portions. You can try incorporating leaner cuts of meat and not bother decreasing the portions as long as you're in a caloric deficit. See which one makes you feel good. If you're consuming more lean meats and you notice that for 2 or 3 days you're fine, and then you start to get a little bit sluggish, your energy levels aren't that great, then you can also start to incorporate fattier meats when you start to get to those symptoms. If you notice your energy levels drops, then you can make that your fat refeed day. You don't have to be very precise and say, okay, every 5th day is going to be my fat refeed day. You can go by how you feel. If you feel great on high protein, low fat, keep doing that. As soon as you notice your energy levels start to dip a little bit, then try incorporating the fat refeed and see how you feel. If your fat refeed ends up making you feel better, you have better energy, then keep doing that. Every time you start to notice your energy goes down a little bit, incorporate a fat refeed. You don't have to do it, but try it out, see if it works for you. If you notice that it helps, then incorporate the fat refeed. If you notice doing high protein, low fat is fine and you don't need to do the fat refeed, then you don't need to do a fat refeed. You can just do leaner cuts of meat throughout the entire duration of your carnivore diet. If you notice that even one day of going high protein, low fat negatively affects you, then go back to doing a higher fat diet and simply limit your portion sizes to the point where your calories are low enough that you are in a caloric deficit. But that's it for today's video. I hope this helped you out. And if you have any other questions, go ahead, ask your questions down in the comment section. If you liked the video, smash that like button. It will really help me out. And once again, if you're either new to the channel or you haven't subscribed yet and you would like to continue following along with the workouts, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell because I will be uploading new videos every single day. And again, in a couple of weeks, I will be changing the format where all the videos will be more of these vlog style videos where I will just be answering your questions and discussing different topics. But that's it for today's video. Thanks for tuning in and I will see you again next week.